Welcome to another episode of the Seven Laws podcast. I'm Michal Pur. I'm the podcast geopolitical analyst and commentator. And here with me is Professor Miroslav Barta. Hi.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm
famous Egyptologist.
I'm not saying famous. I'm just saying Egyptologist and archaeologist.
World-renowned, and, I would say Egyptologist.
Since it's 7 in the morning on the eastern coast, do you know what's the latest?
I don't know.
We have our American followers already.
Yeah.
One of them who provided me with massive criticism. Massive criticism.
I'm ashamed.
But very useful. It was one of the reasons why I decided to produce this very simple, but I hope useful.
Now I'm depressed.
For you, website on the 7 Laws theory. Peter Kellyman from Springfield and in DC. So we say hello to Peter.
I've met him once.
Peter Kellyman. He was here in Prague, and once he came to watch the Czech podcast, New World, that we started last year already. So that's a positive news. It's because it's very difficult.
Now I'm quite depressed. But
depressed? Why? It's difficult. Obviously, it's very difficult in the US.
It's very difficult
we start with our followers.
Yes.
Very good news.
Yes, that's very good news. We live in a very difficult world. This is our new topic, I would say. I already saw some headlines that there is the biggest number of wars since the 60s of the last century. So that's a lot. Maybe tens of conflicts and wars. Actually, I found the review called Global Humanitarian Overview 2024. So it's a current year. And there are some pretty depressing statistics. 1 out of 5 children is living in or fleeing from conflict. That's a lot. That's actually one-fifth.
Yeah, 20%
That's one-fifth.
of kids.
20% of kids are living in a conflict or fleeing from a conflict. That's a lot. Displacement. 1 in 73 people in the world are forcibly displaced. Forcibly. So maybe because of war or some regional hatred or something. Disease outbreaks. 29 countries reported cholera outbreaks in 2023. That's a lot. So, what is happening now, Mirek?
One of the things.
It looks like mayhem.
First of all, I would say, yes, it's very important to pay attention to statistics because numbers don't lie, as Václav Smil would put it.
Yes.
Another thing is, we live in such a as far as information technology, social media, etc., social networks are concerned, in such a global world. Thomas Friedman wrote a book about it, saying the world is flat. Very, very influential book published years ago about globalization. So it's quite the opposite of Elizabeth Bro's deglobalization that appeared in English a couple of months ago. Was it 2023? Yeah.
No,
24.
It was actually this February.
February 2024. Yale University Press Yale.
It's Elizabeth Bro, Goodbye Globalization.
But what I want to say is that since the world is really flat and global, we tend to have an impression that everything is falling apart because we get huge data from all different parts of the world. So before, when there were no such technological means, we lived, we heard about a murder in a city 200 miles away from Prague, in Brno, for instance, or in Ostrava, another 300 miles. But now, and since people tend to follow negative news, and most people in the media tend to produce negative news, that's a sad story, but it's my experience, then we have an impression that the whole world is going about to explode. On the other hand, we shouldn't underestimate the current geopolitical situation. And this is going to be the topic of today's morning podcast for you.
Yes. Which current conflict, is the bloodiest? Try it.
Bloodiest.
Actually,
It's
now.
hard to say, and I'm no
with
specialist
most
in this.
victims.
But I think one of the one of the hot candidates is the Ukrainian war. You know,
It
the
is.
Russia that attacked Ukraine in February 2022, and
With the
I
total
think
number of victims, definitely this
it's,
Ukraine war.
you know, there are dozens of thousands of men killed,
Maybe
civilian
100. We don't
civilian
know.
casualties, etc., including kids. You know, destruction of hospitals and civilian suburbs on the territory of Ukraine. So, as you said correctly, it's probably hundreds of thousands of people being killed, another couple of hundreds of thousands being wounded. So this is one of the local conflicts, and what I'm particularly afraid of is that all the local conflicts we now can see all over the world could one day synchronize, and we can wake up into a completely different world. And as we are going to call this this episode of the podcast is probably the world is burning, or world on fire, and on fire.
World on fire.
Because it's so that's one particular place, one particular spot on the planet. Then we have the Middle East conflict that more and more countries are participating in. It started in Israel last year, and now we have Syria, Turkey, and above all Iran.
And Lebanon.
Lebanon, Iran. That is a local, very influential power. Actually, Iran is a local geopolitical power since 2,500 years, when they started their wars with the Greeks, and since then they never stopped have the ambition to rule the Middle East, and now they strongly support Hezbollah fraction that is operating from southern Lebanon. And a couple of days ago, the media were just flooded. It was on the 5th of August, as far as I remember correctly, with the news that the sort of global conflict is very close, and everybody was expecting a retaliation from Iran and from in other words from southern Lebanon, as a consequence of killing of Hania in Tehran,
the chief of Hamas. Yeah,
so that's second territory. Then we have Africa as such.
Sudan. Actually, this is the most bloodiest conflict right now. Sudan.
It's maybe worse than Ukraine, yes.
Yes.
And our the fact why we pay more attention to Ukraine is that it's very intensively covered by the media. It's very close to our country, which is Czech Republic. Whereas Sudan is very far away.
It's a huge country, actually.
It's a huge country, and it's not covered by media because I don't know of any single Western journalist being there. So everything what we hear has a delay by several days or maybe even
months.
weeks, you know, because we worked in Sudan for several years as archaeologists. And I got this question why I have my stamps from my visa from Sudan in passport arriving to the US. And this is one of the very bad things that can happen to your passport, to have a visa from Sudan. And I always say, look, I'm working as an archaeologist. But what I hear, what I gather from our friends there and from politicians that in one way or another are associated with Sudan is that Khartoum as such, the former capital city of Sudan, basically doesn't exist anymore. It was made completely flat.
But it was actually, I think it was one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
It was really
You've
wonderful.
been there, so you can confirm.
Have to say that I enjoyed enormously being in Sudan several times, working there several years, always a season of a month or 5 weeks. And The people were wonderful, the hospitality there, and I'm just feeling very sorry for the people. So it's Sudan, it's Africa as such, because if we go back in time, no deeper than 5-6 years back, then we can see that at least 7 or 8 coup d'état happened there in different countries under different conditions. But in all cases, it was a consequence of badly performed democracy. And that's why it's very popular now to say that democracy is very fell into disgrace in Africa. But it's not because of the democracy, which is just a tool, and the tool is just fine. But the problem is how you work with the tool, and for quite logical reasons, to have a well-performing democracy, you need educated population, majority of the population. I mean, not just university degrees, but have good educated base, starting with kindergarten and the first grades in the school, and then high schools maybe. But college is not of so much essence, but the basic education is very important. And this failed completely. So when you compare the number of countries having democracy 30 years and now, you can see there is a clear drop in numbers of those countries. And the question is, of course, why?
Right.
We can't solve it in this podcast.
Maybe the democracy doesn't work.
No,
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
It works, but only under certain circumstances, and it's on us to see that to see that democracy becomes popular again. So it's Africa as such. Then we have Suez and the Houthis in Yemen, and
it's an ongoing conflict. Yeah,
it impacts the global economy because. Most of the ships have been since several months already circumnavigating the African continent, which is a delay of about 10 or 11 days, if I remember properly. And obviously, it's a huge economic nuisance because you are losing money, you are losing time, you are losing energy. Everybody gets impatient. So this is Africa. Then we can move on to the east, in the eastwards direction, and we end up in Bangladesh.
This is not a war. It's I would say, anxiety or riots, maybe, or revolution. Maybe it's time to call it revolution. It's very similar to Arab Spring. It's almost 15 years. Is it? No, it was 2011. So it's 14 or 13 years from the Arab Spring. But the reasons for the revolutions are pretty similar. There is a huge economic slowdown. There is a corruption, as we already talked about in Egypt episode or Egyptian episode. And there is something like the fall of the social contract, I would say.
Yes, I would agree. It's maybe too daring, at least at the moment, to say that it's parallel to Arab Spring. We will see how other countries around react. But what we know for sure that this Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who was reigning there for almost a quarter of a century, became extremely unpopular. In a way, it's a family. It was the country was run as a family business because her father was a former president of Bangladesh, and she was a premier for 4 terms actually.
Nepotism.
4 terms.
Yeah, classic.
Very nice nepotism. High level of corruption. And another thing, they were very unhappy about Sheikh Hasina was the fact that
Did she already left or no?
She left already. She's somewhere in India, well taken care of, and she was a huge promoter of the quotas in the government because in Bangladesh They decided based on your political history, whether you took active part in the opposition during against the former regime, etc. So if you belong to a specific group, you were given or not given, certain rights to participate in the government or in the local governments, etc. So this is a kind of political nepotism as well, and. All of a sudden, in the spring 2024, she won the fourth term. That was the beginning of the end, because most of the opposition started really to protest, and everybody said, "We have enough already. We have enough already." So that's one part of the story, and another part of the story is also something that is quite obvious in the modern world. It's the state does. No state can exist independently on the environment and of the environment. And in this case, what you can see in Politico, in Wall Street Journal, etc., is that she was put down because she had very close ties with India. And that was something that made China and Pakistan very unhappy. So probably China and Pakistan had their say in the build-up of the opposition, and the result was that on the 5th, I think, on the 5th of August, she fled to India.
We should tell that Bangladesh is a very difficult thing to understand, because there was a partition in India, and Bangladesh gained the independence in 40s, I think, last century. And then there was a war. And actually, there was another partition in 1971 or 70s, last century. And actually, again, Bangladesh gained independence. And there was a Bangladesh and Pakistan partition. And so it's difficult to govern Bangladesh, because it's between two main enemies.
Different histories,
and
different nations.
They're different region. Actually, it's a Muslim country, and India is mainly Hindu
what's
country.
Your opinion? Because I spend a lot of time talking. So what do you think about the future of Bangladesh? Because we should remind our friends that Bangladesh is one of the biggest countries in the world. The population totals about 190 million people. Is the second biggest producer of textiles in the world. So do you think these latest events are going to have some impact on the business, on the economy of the country and the whole region?
For many decades, it was one of the poorest country in the world. Last, let's say, 20 years, there was some economic growth, but based on a primary industry, which means everybody has a T-shirt from Bangladesh. And why?
Including us.
Including us. And why do you have the T-shirt from Bangladesh? Because it's cheap. And actually, maybe it's tailored by children. It's possible. We don't know, but there are some rumors. Not only rumors, but some facts. And what can happen? My main concern is that the future of the country doesn't depend on Bangladesh. It depends on China. It depends on India.
No, they will decide.
But they will decide what will happen. And my main concern is that the country will sink deeper into the troubles. So nothing positive.
Let me just read something from the computer, because I just looked up about some essential data about Bangladesh. So the highlight is 18.7%, which means that 18.7% of the population lived below the national poverty line back in 2022. In Bangladesh, the proportion of employed population below $2.15 purchasing power a day in 2023 was 5.8%, 6%. And for every 1,000 babies born in Bangladesh recently, 30 of them died before their 5th birthday. So the data are quite depressing. So this is Bangladesh. And then we can move back to the West, starting with
Bangladesh, just one more thing to add up to Bangladesh. It's actually one of the countries which is strongly hit by the climate change. Not
the rising level of the sea.
The rising level of the sea, but by huge rains, not by the desert or dryness or something, but by the rains, by the water, and it will be difficult for them to cope with all the problems.
The ultimate consequence of the rising levels of the seas and oceans is that many countries in Asia have problems with rising salinity of the fields. So it diminishes the crop, which is the essential factors for the level of living.
I'm afraid that we will see a strong migration flow from the Bangladesh to
from Asia.
Yes, from Asia.
Definitely. In which direction then?
Europe.
Isn't it too far?
Not only Europe, but mainly Europe. Yeah.
You listen well. You're in America. Everybody wants to live in Europe.
Yes. But I think they have a lot of problems with the migration from the south. Yeah.
And then we have Great Britain, August 1st. Three kids killed and many wounded in Southport by a 17-year-old boy, born in Britain, grew up in Britain, educated in Britain. Allegedly, based on social media misinformation, a Muslim, and huge.
But I think he wasn't. He was a Christian.
Yes, he was a Christian. Well, he is a Christian. He's still alive.
Yeah.
He's still alive. And what happened then? It was a complete resignation of the state on the use of power, because the people took over. I mean, both camps, the extreme leftists, the extreme rightists. And I mean, it's still going on in some way. And it again shows how people are frustrated, and then one very sad event can trigger a huge uprising. So it just shows you how the political and social situation, even in the most developed countries, and I have no doubt that Great Britain is one of the most developed countries in the world, is actually fragile. And I'm really curious what the new British Premier, Keir Starmer, is going to do about the situation, because he says that everything what we see in the Britain is due to the extreme right wing in the society. But we can hear from many citizens in Britain that are saying, "I'm protesting as well, but I'm not extreme rightist."
Yeah, I saw one very actual and new poll by YouGov, and
when was it?
It was
yesterday.
Yesterday, yes, yesterday. It was on what is now? It's 8th of August, and it was on 7th of August. Only 47% are people.
Of the asked population.
Of the asked population are satisfied by the response by Kevin Starmer to the riots. So that's not a lot, I would say. So it looks like it's not only disinformation. It's not only Russia, as you can see in the headlines in the media. So it's a loss of power.
On the part of the government, you mean?
Yes.
What
you have to do something. You have to do something. If there, it reminds me the situation in the United States back in, it was 2022. There were riots in Minneapolis and some other big cities, and it was actually the same. It took like 3 or 4 days before they called the National Guard to destroy the riots, and that's it. You have to do something, and people will be satisfied. If you do nothing,
as a government, you have to show your strength and authority. Otherwise, you are not able to control the country anymore. And but the difference, the huge difference between the Great Britain and the US is that the US, at the end, is always willing and calls the National Guard.
Yes,
always. But which is the ultimate
power. You know that I think British policemen can handle a gun or can take a gun. I think some of them. Yeah. So it's difficult to
solve it. You need the army. You need highly trained profs to solve the situation, and you need a government that is determined to solve the situation, not just to blame a specific group of citizens for causing the riots. So this is Great Britain, and then we come to the US itself. We are no experts on the US to forewarn you, but everybody in the world is following.
We can give you our perspective, which is from the center of the Europe.
Lay persons, and what happened in the last few days. The way Joe Biden was expelled on that. I would call it Bloody Sunday, in a way, a symbolical Bloody Sunday.
Political.
And those 10 hours that were described by Wall Street Journal when Kamala Harris, who is now running for presidency, managed to make like 100 phone calls in 10 hours and get at least virtually the majority of the voices she needed for being approved for running. On her side. So when at the end of Sunday, everything was basically decided, and only 3 days later, I think on Wednesday, Barack Obama congratulate her and endorse her running. But I think Barack Obama was not particularly happy with the outcome, but which is shown by the fact that between Sunday and Wednesday, you had 3 empty days when he became silent, and I just wonder how this will develop in the next few months. The more so that on the 14th of November, I should have a freedom lecture for the Czech embassy in DC. So if you want to come to the freedom lecture, you are mostly welcome. But back to the presidential pause. What's your take now? We have Trump, who is basically following the line of argument unchanged. It's the same, it's the same rhetoric.
I wouldn't say unchanged. I wouldn't
Biden.
say unchanged.
Okay, so
I think as Bill Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid. And I see some changes in Donald Trump campaigns. He's shifting his focus on economy, I think, which is the only option how he can win. And you can see it in the polls that Kamala is a slight favorite. And I've told I said in one of our podcasts last year, it's already a year, that it will be a difficult choice, but I still think the Democrats are favorites still. Yeah, no matter what, no matter the assassination attempt, but economy can change everything. If there is a fear of recession, which is there definitely, we can see some the stocks are falling or fell.
I noticed.
Yes, it was the strongest drop since 2022. 2020 maybe. It was it was.
And let me ask one of the last questions, because we've been maybe too long already, but let's conclude with this. why is that the Democrats, well, at least it appears to me as a lay person, pay so little attention to the current stage of economy, unlike Trump?
Because of the Bidenomics, they've bet everything on that, on the headline that Bidenomics is working.
But so it's not.
We don't know. There is no recession now. There is a fear of recession. So we will see what will happen in the next, let's say, weeks or months. So still, we don't know if the Bidenomics is working or not. Kamala, I think, strongly hope that it is working, and he keeps repeating that it is working, and that's the main question. And we are not able to answer this question now, and we will see the answer in a few weeks.
Thank you for clarification. Let me remind our listeners that today is August the 8th.
Yes.
This particular episode will be probably broadcasted next week as the first from the recorded ones over the last few days. We are here for you. We will be happy if you follow us, if you listen to our podcast, and if you write us emails with your reactions. Criticism, obviously, because we are not native speakers.
Yes.
You can hear it.
We are not Americans.
It's a newborn baby, this podcast, but we are determined to make it grow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.